This webinar is about the July 22 release. My name is Laurens Wapenaar. I'm a product manager at FinDock, and with me is Klaas Koistra, also a product manager at FinDock. And together we will show you what we have built and what we will ship with the July 22 release. Everything we talk about, except for pilots, is already available in your sandbox environments and will be shipped to production automatically on July the 24th. If you would like to see more details about the release itself and receive live updates, please go to status.findock.com. Now the topics for this webinar. We'll be talking about our improvements to payment schedule performance. We have a new feature for giving pages called custom domains, and which is not on this slide. We'll talk briefly about data quality validation. And finally, but definitely not least, we'll talk about all the bugs and enhancements that we've added. First, an update on the status of our pilots and beta features. With this release, our Go Cardless instant bank pay feature will be moved to generally available. It was already available as beta in your environment, but with this, it's generally available and you can start using it without any concerns about whether there are going to be changes to it. Like I said, we have our payment schedule performance pilot, and we've added a new pilot called custom domains, which we'll talk about shortly. These will be in pilot in this release, and hopefully, well, depending on your feedback and our own internal testing, we will move this to beta, which is our stage of public testing, in our next September release. So let's get started with payment schedule performance. A brief reminder about why we're doing this. So payment schedules are, of course, our tool to collect recurring payments from Salesforce, which you can configure on the when and why and what you want to collect at what moment. And we want to make this as smooth and as fast as possible, simply because the longer this process takes, the higher risk of business impact there is, and the longer it takes for you to receive feedback on the success of it. And we want to make this as short as possible. In our previous release, we introduced significant performance increases to the generating step of the payment schedule, which is the first step in which we select all the installments or payments that need to be collected. But with this release, we've also introduced additional improvements to the processing and close stage and to the generating stage. So this means that on top of the improvements we have already done, we now expect these two stages to also be a lot faster. These changes, other than the performance improvements we did in the May release, are already available in the sandbox environment and will be GA immediately because they are more an optimization of current technology than new technology. Now, if we look at how much faster are we talking, so last webinar already showed some details about how much faster we think the generate step is going to be, the part that's in pilot. In the pilot phase, we tested with several of our current customers and validated that these performance increases also happen in their environments. So we expect the generate step to finish 15 to 20 times faster than it did before. On top of that, available in all environments with the July release, we also expect the process and close steps to be about 5 times as fast as it was now. In our testing, we tested with about 1 million records, and we saw that what took 13 hours before was 2.5 hours or 3 hours after. So significant increases as well. And you should be seeing these increases with your next release. This, of course, isn't only for payment schedules with 1 million records, of which there are a few, but we also see these increases if you do only like 1,000 or 100,000, for which the payment schedule should now take minutes instead of hours. One step back. So like I said, we will continue testing the pilot, and we hope to ship this to beta in September so that everyone can start using it. If you would like to test together with us and help us improve this and test this in practice to see how it runs in your environment, please contact me or our support department. Now on to our new feature, which is Giving Pages custom domains. Currently, all Giving Pages run on a givingpage.org domain, which is managed by FinDock. We've got lots of feedback from customers that say, we would love to use Giving Pages, but more importantly, run it on our own domain. So for instance, not donate.givingpage.org, but donate.savetherhino.org. Now, the reason for this is that using your own domain increases trust in your page. It increases the perception of security. Although Giving Pages is, of course, fully secure, the perception is often, if you stay on the same domain, it's more secure. It enhances the brand recognition. So next to the logo, next to the titles of the page and things like that, the domain itself also impacts this, and it's good for search engine optimizations, so your page rises to the top. Now, rather than talking too much about this, class is going to show us how easy it is to implement this feature and what that looks like in a real environment.
Thank you, Lawrence. So let's say I run a charity that wants to save the rhinos and I'm a happy user of Giving Pages.
Stop sharing your screen, class.
I'm sorry. Now it's back. Thank you, Lawrence. So let's say I run a charity that wants to save the rhinos and I'm a happy user of Giving Pages. Giving Pages allow you to easily create engaging donation pages right from within Salesforce. As you can see here, I have my own Giving Page that runs on givingpage.org. With the introduction of custom domains for Giving Pages, we want to switch our domain so our Giving Pages are run from our own domain. This is not our domain. We now want to use a subdomain so our donors are kept on the same domain as the rest of the website. To set up a custom domain, I only need two things. I need access to the page manager within Salesforce to configure the domain, and I need access to the control panel of my hosting provider. To set up our custom domain, I go into the Giving Page Manager and go into my Giving Page settings. Here I can see my current givingpage.org domain, and I have the option to add a custom domain. I choose a domain and fill it in. For this demo, I'm using a subdomain. You can also decide to use a primary domain that you want your Giving Page to live on. Currently, you can pick one custom domain. After I click Add Domain, I am presented with the instructions to connect my chosen domain to Giving Pages. We need to be authorized for FinDock to use this domain. The way to authorize this is by adding a DNS record. I go to the management console of my domain hoster to do so. Here, I choose to add a DNS record for the chosen domain. Custom domains only require one CNAME record to be set up. I then fill in the provided details to connect give.klaaskoistra.nl to Giving Pages. As you can see here, the domain, the DNS record is created, and I can go back to the Giving Pages Manager. As you can see here, we indicate that the setup is not complete by a red cross. To complete the setup, I go back into the list of domains, and again, I see that there is a red cross, that something is not right, and I can try to verify my domain. When I click when I click verify domain, FinDock will check if the DNS record has been set up properly. As you can see, this has been successful. Now, FinDock needs to. There is, however, one important step that needs to be performed, which is to secure the domain with SSL, so your donors can donate in a secure and trusted way. You don't have to do anything for this. Since you connected your domain to FinDock giving pages, we automatically create and manage the SSL certificate for this domain. As you can see, immediately after you have verified the domain, we start the process of securing your domain. This might take a couple of hours, but usually is done within seconds. Now, when there is no certificate in place, you will see a warning at the top to tell you that the setup is not fully completed. There's nothing you can do for now, but just wait. In the meantime, your page will still be available from your givingpage.org domain. If I now refresh the page, you see the SSL certificate is configured and a checkbox appears to indicate all is good. It also lists in the domain that the give.klaasgoistra.nl is set up correctly. Your existing givingpage.org domain is still here. For example, if your domain is not working, and you can use this as a fallback. Now we can go to the existing page and see that it lives on my own custom domain. You see it's secured with SSL. It has give.klaasgoistra.nl as the domain, and it has the same branding options I had before, which creates a complete experience that builds trust. Let's make a donation from this giving page right now. So I'll choose a €30 one-time donation. I fill in my details. I hit next, and I want to donate with credit card. In this case, we use Stripe as our payment processor, so I'm taken to Stripe to fill in my credit card details. I hit pay, and then when the payment is completed, I will be redirected back to my custom domain to indicate that the payment is successful and the donation has been processed. And this is custom giving pages. This is custom domains for FinDock giving pages. Back to you, Lawrence.
Thanks, Klaas, for your very smooth first demo in a FinDock webinar. Now we are starting this feature in a pilot because there are several things we want to test. We want to, of course, test the user experience, whether this works in all environments, and we are looking for customers to test it with us. This feature will be a paid add-on once it goes GA. If you would like to participate in the pilot, please email me at laurens@findock.com or support@findock.com. Now on to our third topic of today, which is data quality validation. So to give a little bit of context, we've been on a continued mission to make collecting payments with FinDock as frictionless as possible. And one of the ways we do this is by making sure you have all the data you need to collect your direct debits, credit cards, or other type of recurring payments. We've seen that this is often a reason that the payment schedule fails. So we've already implemented several features to make sure that this can be handled before you start your collections. Initially, we implemented a data quality component and data quality rules on the payment schedule and installment that you can use to verify whether all the data is correct and ready to be collected. Later on, we went from a component to inline validation of mandate schedules and SEPA credit transfer. And by inline, I mean it's part of the steps in the payment schedule and it's enforced there. So before you go to processing, we first validate the data. And now we're taking the next step in updating. We've taken the next step in updating these rules. In the last months, we have continuously checked whether the rules that we set for data quality are also recognized by the banks and the payment service providers as being the rules for data quality for payment collection. And everywhere where we deviated, we have now updated that with the intention of, as a next step, to enforce inline validation of all payment schedules. So not just SEPA credit transfer and mandate schedules. So that we can always be sure that the data that we take to the bank or take to the payment service provider is correct. A second reason we've been working on this is that we also expose all these rules in basically a Google Drive sheet, which you can and which we've seen being used as a reference to what data FinDock requires to be in the system, which is often used by partners when they build their migration templates. So instead of uploading the data and then finding out you're missing something when you run a payment schedule, you can in advance verify exactly what data is needed, whether there are formatting rules to it, whether there's a max length, whether they need to have a certain record type for FinDock to be able to collect before you start your migration, which is of course a costly step. This can be found online in our documentation under data quality validation. So finally, all the bugs and enhancements. I won't talk through them all because there's simply too many for this webinar, but I would like to highlight a few. Everything that's not highlighted, you can of course find in the release notes on our documentation website. The first thing I'd like to highlight is what we've done for Tikkie. So Tikkie is a Dutch QR payment method, basically, which is used by lots of nonprofits, lots of our customers, which generates both URLs and QRs in the payment request generator. Now, many of our customers have said that they only need the URLs and not the QR code images itself, because the QR codes are generated by their printing house. And of course, not generating the QRs in FinDock will save some time, especially if you're trying to create about 50,000 of these. So now we've added an option to generate these Tikkies without a QR code, which saves a lot of time here. We've also added the default expiration period because the default expiration period was 14 days by default for Tikkie. But that could mean that if you forgot to set an expiration date or period, that the URL itself had expired before the mailing went out. So there's now a very long expiration date by default. If you wanted to be shorter, you can set it in our setup. Second thing I'd like to highlight is for gift date, we have refined the way that we determine what donation date we use here. So previously we always used the due date, but now we've also started taking last collection date into the mix to get closer to the actual date that that the donation was made by the customer or the donor. This doesn't deviate very often, but we've provided instructions in our documentation to check whether in your use case donations are often paid later than expected. For PayPal, we've added multi-merchant support. So now it's possible to use several different PayPal accounts with FinDock in the same Salesforce environment. All the other bugs and enhancements can be found in our documentation So please don't hesitate to go to docs.findock.com/release notes July 22. That's all there was from our side. Thank you for joining this webinar. Me and Klaas will stick around to answer any questions that you might have.